always had this picture of myself. If I ever left Ron, I would end up in some dingy little one-room apartment in some place, you know, and that I would have some dreary little secretarial job or something somewhere. And I could picture myself coming home from work with brown paper bags full of groceries in my arms, coming into this dark apartment, having just picked Kristen up from a babysitter, and fixing a meal for her, and just reading and going to bed. And I couldn't leave him. I was so terrified of being alone. And who would take care of us? I mean, who would be the last person in the line of responsibility for us? Not me. I'd never done anything like that in my whole life. I'd always had somebody to lean on. It was always somebody. And to think that I would be out all alone in the world and I would have this child leaning on me, too. I mean, my God, I couldn't face it. Really, he doesn't care, really. No. He wants the power and the money first. Because with that comes women. He doesn't need her.
Yeah, there are always a lot of them around, right? Screw or what?
Yeah, another. What was it? Lisa once said something that was so beautiful. She said, man, you know, oh, these my goddamn fucking men, you know. All they do is they spend their whole lives looking for some kind of hole to put it into, and they don't even do that right.
If you want to
They're all alike when you turn them upside down. That's what I've been told.
No, thank God some of them look a little different.
No, women. That's what men say about
That's
women.
what men say about women.
Oh,
yeah.
really? Do they?
Haven't you ever been told that? Turn them upside down, they're all alike.
Oh, God, I didn't want to be unpopular. You know, it was just the worst thing that could happen to you. To be the one who nobody liked. And everybody sort of giggled about behind, oh, my God, you know, I just didn't have the strength to face being that kind of person. I don't want to be interviewed, you know. I mean, like that, I don't like that whole idea. Because I'm nobody. I mean, I'm nobody.
Scene 1, take 4.
Camera roll.
Yeah.
Roll on, darling. Come on, baby, roll. All right, we're going to talk about sex. I'm supposed to talk about the first time I ever got laid. Honey. We're going to really give it to you now. This is Women's Liberation, cinema. All right. It's really embarrassing because it was my husband. Well, in the beginning, when Ron and I were first married, I thought that we were just going to have this gay, wonderful existence together as pals, you know. And it came down to the fact that he had to earn a living. And that's that. And the way that he chose to earn his living was in business. So I worked for a while, you know, and then I quit. And then I had a baby. And I threw myself into that completely because I have a lot of energy. And I became extremely dependent. I didn't know I was dependent at the time. I thought I was a very strong woman who had a mind of her own. And we fell into something that he couldn't recognize or change. I don't know what it was, you know. And I demanded a great deal from him emotionally because it was the only real outlet I had. He was the only sort of love, hate, everything object that I had. My husband was the only man I ever met in my entire life that I never had any sexual attraction to at all. And but I'm not being funny. Ever. Never. In the beginning, at the end, in the middle. I knew I wanted to be where things were exciting, where things were happening. So I pushed and I pushed. And he always thought that he was, you know, he always thought that he was thinking these things himself. It's a very old story. But I made him do whatever I wanted him to do. And we were eventually sent overseas. Now, that was the catch, because I didn't know we'd be sent to the Philippines, man. I thought we would be sent someplace like Paris or Rome. A career never occurred to me, because I spent my life just being attractive to boys, you know, when I was in high school and college. That was, and a social life and everything. And I got good grades, but that was just a way of staying in college, you know. It was at the point when I came from Hollywood to New York my ex-husband chose at this moment to kidnap my daughter and press me with an unfit mother suit. And I was floored. I couldn't believe it. It was the most... I thought we were always going to be friends anyway, even though we'd been divorced. And what he did was really so against everything that had ever been between us. He knew what kind of a mother I was. He knows how I feel about my child. And he just... it was as if he was purposely kicking me in the teeth. And I was terribly confused. And I had to make the choice as to whether I was going to fight a sufficient amount to make a good show of being a devoted mother and lose, or whether I was going to really commit myself to getting my daughter back and getting my life started the way I wanted it. I mean, I was just ready to start my life. I was just ready to get going in the thing I've been waiting for years and traveled thousands of miles to get to. And this son of a bitch decided to kidnap Kristen and, stop my money completely so that I had nothing to live on. And I had rent to pay in Hollywood on the 1st of June last year. And I had no money to live on in New York, and I was caught. And I couldn't possibly afford a lawyer. I mean, Christ, how could I afford a lawyer? So, you just solve these problems. I don't know. You just do it. And I pulled myself together. I decided I really wanted Kristen back, that this was really the right place for her, given all the alternatives and given, what would be good for Kristen in her life. I realized that Kristen was hearing this. Sometimes she would be in the room when we'd fight, and I realized that, you just can't have a child go through that. It just is not. They blame themselves. They really do. I used to sit in that little room. There was a little room down the hall from my parents. It must have been a nursery when they built the house or something, because it was almost just big enough for a bed to fit in and something else, and that was it. And it was all windows, 3 on one side and 3 on the other, just pure light with white organdy curtains. I loved it. Mom and Dad fought in their bedroom with the door closed, and I had my door, I would open a crack because I had this morbid curiosity. I had to hear it, but it made me so miserable. And I would lie in bed with tears running down the sides of my face, just soaking my pillow and salt all over, and crying and sobbing and thinking, oh, God, make them stop. It was just terrible. It's really awful when you're a small child and you listen to your parents fight. I remember one time, I don't even know what had happened. I don't know what we were being punished for. But Kate and I had done something. And Mother said she was going to tell Dad when he came home. It's an old story. And we waited in fear and trembling, and he came home. And then he took us very ceremoniously up into what was our bedroom. We slept in the same room at that time. He took us up there and very ceremoniously, I don't know who he spanked first, but made us wait to be spanked, And it was torturous. It was very sadistic, what he did. I hated him. I hated the son of a bitch. But I really liked him. He's kind of corny, and all he ever says is, yeah, you betcha. Or, yes, sir, that's right. That's right. That's right. He's just an old man. He's 70 years old. So I went to the Philippines, and there I became involved in a way of life that really was very seductive, Wow. I had all kinds of servants, and I had a big house, and I had a chauffeured limousine, and I was doing everything that people in the movies did, and I was living this gracious, wonderful life, and I had a feeling of power, And I did have some, I became involved with people politically there, in politics. I was completely corrupted human being. In the Philippines, they have this, it's a very backward country, and they're just 2 classes. And you're either very, very, very rich, or you're very poor, but they're not really starving. It's a kind of, they're the peasants, And it's really still almost feudal. There are about 10 people who own the country. And they all live in this incredibly lavish way, I had 7 servants who lived in and worked 6 days a week. And I lived in a very big, a mausoleum of a house. Anyway, I became extremely bored, of course, because I had absolutely nothing to do at all. I didn't even have to take things to the laundry or the supermarket anymore. And that's all I'd done before anyway. Now I didn't do that. And then I had always gone on an overeating jag. And I ate and ate and ate and ate all the time. And then I got stuck on diet pills because I was trying to lose weight. So I was a complete neurotic. I mean, I really was crazy. I was living in this huge Aztec sacrificial altar, and my husband was a very busy businessman. He had people coming in from all over the world all the time, and I had to play hostess for these people. And this was really an enslavement. See, I had all these servants, and I was really just the number one geisha, And that's really what you are in the Orient, because a woman has no function there at all. And I almost went out of my blooming head, I used to walk around on this screened-in porch that we had on our house, wringing my hands and crying. And I would, only now do I make the correlation, of course, but I had the feelings about my mother wringing her hands, and I had always said that I was never going to be one of those hand-wringing women who was sitting around waiting for some man to come home. And there I was. And that was it, man, that was it. I had to get out. There was no other way. I had to break away, and I was very frightened because I pictured myself left, all alone with a child in the world and no way to support it because I hadn't ever pursued any kind of skill. And so, I don't know, I used the man that I became involved with as an excuse, and I wanted to marry him. And he turned away from me eventually, and I had to face up to things. I couldn't run back to my husband. He was a very bitter man at that point. So I decided what it was I wanted to do, and I made up my mind that the only way to do it was to decide to do it. And I remember I was going to leave Manila with some friends, and we were going to go to Rome. We were going to go to London and then Rome. And we all sat around, the way we have been in this movie company, just rapping about doing it, but sort of never knowing whether we really would get out. And I said one day, all right, the only way to do it is we have to decide on a date. On that date, we are leaving. That's it. If you're not ready, you have to pack your suitcase and get to the airport fast because we're leaving. And we decided on January 19th. And I left on January 19th. I got money together. I don't know how I did it. I decided where to go. I decided to go to Hong Kong and then Los Angeles. And I kind of tread carefully, and I got it all done, and I went. And I cried all the way to Hong Kong. I created such a ruckus on that goddamn airplane that the stewardess was almost hysterical. And she kept putting ice bags on my head, and I kept saying, but you don't know my poor husband. And Ron had come and put me on the plane, and he'd gotten so upset he dropped Kristen on the floor. And started to cry, and there was this terrible scene in the airplane, and everybody in my life was standing up on the big observation deck, including his parents who had come to see us, right there in the Orient with us, and I'm leaving. So I left. He was desperate to keep me because he always knew that I probably wouldn't stay. I don't know, but I think he always knew. And you can sense those things, when you're involved with a person. I think. I don't know. I can tell. So I came to New York. And that's the whole story, My ex-husband kidnapped my daughter, and I thought I'd had trouble before, but I never knew what trouble was, because here I was in New York City with no money, and my child has been kidnapped, and I'm facing all that, and I'm thinking I'm a wicked woman. I'm a wicked woman, and I'm being punished for all the things I've done. I left this good man. I took this child away, and I lived this wild life in Hollywood, and I wasn't a mother. I didn't hover over this child and protect her every minute, I went out and I had a good time, and I have no right to do that. So I had to sort all that out in my head, and I had to sort out whether I really wanted her back or not. And that was another whole thing. What did I want with her anyway? It's the moment when you really lose your freedom. Motherhood is the moment when you really lose it, because from then until the child is about 21, probably, really, this person is really dependent on you. In other words, if you don't perform, you're not the only one who's going to suffer. The kid is too. So anyway, I had to decide that I wanted her, and I had to really fight. And I couldn't believe how hard I had to fight. I mean, I kept thinking, I went through tremendous self-pity things, and then I would go into tremendous, just sheer gut anger over everything that was happening. My father left when I was 8, And my mother had to go to work, and she had to work at a thing that took hours and hours and hours a day. She became a life insurance agent, and she was terrified to do that because she'd only taught for 4 years while she was engaged, and that was the only thing that she had ever done for a living. So, the idea that she had to go back to work was really frightening because I remember her saying, what am I going to do? Am I going to sell stockings in Dayton's basement or something? Dayton's is a department store in Minneapolis. And it was like, it would be the most humiliating thing that could ever happen to the family because we had this tremendous family, a whole family ego. I guess every family has it, but we thought we were the only ones who did, kind of. I did anyway. And that would shame the family. I knew that she was scared about money all the time. I was always afraid we were going to lose our house. Oh, God, we used to live in terror that we were going to lose our house. Mother would use it as a threat that she was going to send it to call the realtor. I don't really know. It was like all of a sudden one day I guess I just pushed everything too far, I was affecting my husband tremendously. He was drinking like a fish. And I really began to think he'd have an alcoholic problem. And my father had been an alcoholic. And my mother had been a hand wringer waiting at night for him to come home. And I thought, oh, my God, I've gone and done the same thing, man. And I'd walk around the porch in my house and I'd wring my hands and I'd cry and I'd think, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? Because there was just nothing to do. And I wanted to be important. I wanted to be recognized. So I wanted to feel involved, really involved in some kind of work in which I could forget myself. Career was not a word anybody used about me, Aunt Dorothy sent me to the University of Mexico for one term because I was majoring in Spanish at the University of Minnesota. So she sent me to Mexico City to study Spanish. I asked my mother, my mother asked me once what I wanted to do with my life, and I said I thought probably I'd teach because I couldn't think of anything else. And she said, oh no, I know you. I really know you well, and you'll never like it. You'll really be miserable if you teach. And so I dropped it right away because I was very easily influenced that way. I respected my mother tremendously. And I thought, well, she taught and she knew. So I abandoned all those plans, and I just kept majoring in Spanish because Spanish was the only thing I got fantastic grades in. I was always sort of standing around trying to make myself heard in a very silent way by my expressions, or perhaps by leaving the room. If my husband was doing something that I didn't like, that I felt was really infringing upon me as a person, and there were other people around, I would go through a whole game. You go through a whole pouting game. You go through a whole number instead of just saying, hey, because you can't do that. You can't do that. I got to a point in Manila where I was so idle that all I could do was dream about doing exactly what I'm doing right now. Just that, not anything else. This, right now. The creating of something together with the group, in New York City, something that had possibilities for being good and for reaching a lot of people. And I realized one day, I think it was like on my 25th or 26th birthday or something, I thought, my God, it was so easy to get to be this age. It happened so fast. It was just no time at all. Now, in just another no time at all, I'm going to be 50 or 55. And I'm going to be one of those people sitting at the country club with my successful husband. I'm going to be one of those people who says, yeah, when I was in my 20s, I wanted to do that. But then, well, I got married and settled down. And I always thought that was such a pathetic thing to hear. There was time for me to question the way that I was living. I married this man, and then I fell madly in love with the great love of my life, who never really was. He was just a complete masquerade. Everything was... He was like Aunt Dorothy. He was a social psychopath. And I had been in love with Aunt Dorothy as a child, the whole image, everything. And if I married him, I would be Aunt Dorothy. He had the money, he had the glamour, and he had the wit and the brilliance and everything else. And when he wants to be, he can be a perfectly charming, lovable, fantastically magnetic person. Just, the same kind of person as this aunt. And so, and when it fell through, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't grasp it because I had gone to everything I'd ever wanted. I think the fear of not being able to be up to it is the most terrible thing in the world, or the not knowing whether you're up to it or not because you've never really tried. It's like being held in prison, and it's horrible. That's what I went through all the time I was married. And then the relationship I had with Michael was the most wife-like relationship I ever had because he was so brilliant and had such an incredible ego. He was a star, in his own world there in Manila. And my ego couldn't coexist with his in the same room when other people were there. When I was alone with him, that was another thing. We were really quite equal at that moment. But when other people came into the room, you had to diminish yourself because people wouldn't laugh at a joke unless he laughed. It's been a real mind blower. All of this. This has been the mind blower of them all for me. And I feel as if I've just been born. I've had that feeling twice in my life. And the first time was when I met Michael. And the second time was this. And actually, Michael was the beginning of it. I had to pull away from being married. I had to pull away from my mother, my husband, all legal connections, people who would have to be responsible for me in a court or something. I had to pull away, and Michael was the method. But Robin told me about a job with a driving hansom cab in New York City, and I thought it would be kind of a kick. Be better than waitressing. Oh, by the way, I have kept all of this together, friends. Waitressing for a full year, full time.
Waitressing.
And being fired. Yes, I've been fired from 11 jobs, I want you to know. In 14 months. No, you try to get 11 jobs in 14 months, my friend. Oh, for everything for not fucking the boss to just not showing up because I just couldn't take it anymore. Or because I had something like this to do and I certainly wasn't going to go waitressing instead of this. I mean, my life is fascinating. Earning a living, I mean, you always somehow get it together, although I've had to borrow this last month to pay my rent, which I do not like to do at all. We cultivate this subjectivity, and then, I had to get out of it to do this thing as an individual. As an individual, to face my life. New York was a beautiful place to come because nobody wants to hear your story. They've all got their own story. Waitressing is a trip, man. You just don't know. All these poor people are earning their living for 35 years in this world doing this, people, and you don't know what they're going through. I mean, it really is. It isn't just a matter of tolerance or control or anything. This is beyond humanity, I worked for one man who never paid you at all. You just worked for tips. Like a monkey, some kind of trained monkey on his shoulder. I think my loft has been psychologically, the whole psychological process of going from everything being very tidy and neat and American clean and just like in the magazines, to living in a loft on the Bowery is quite an incredible experience because I had to build my own house. And the whole time it was like I was starting out, I was building my own whole new life. And I was doing it with my own two hands. And I'd never known an experience like that before. And it was quite something. And there have been many times when I've almost lost a lot. And then I would imagine the losing of it. And I would go crazy. I would get such a fire in me, it's unbelievable. Because when you live on the Bowery, when you live down here with all these people who have given up, there's something about walking out of your door every day, especially if you're fighting really hard for something, that's just constantly whirring in your mind. I mean, it's just in your breath, in your mind, it's all over you. And you can't think about anything else. It's just a burning thing. And I would go down in that elevator and walk out that door, and there would be a bum, in his own vomit and piss and shit and everything. And I'd look at him, and I'd see what it means to give up. And I think, oh boy, run, baby. You better run. And I learned a lot about running. I learned a lot about survival. And I learned a lot about the system in which we live. And about how inhuman it is. how completely inhuman it is. It isn't anything that's been set up for anything. All I can think about is money. I mean, that's all I think about in the city of New York, because I am always spending my last dollar. And it's really a terrible thing to spend your last dollar in a city where if you are in a subway station 96 blocks from home and you've just dropped your subway token someplace and that's it, and you know that nobody you go up to is going to even give a shit. Well, I think you've just got to actually face the fact that you are a human being, and you really are a human being. You are not just an afterthought or somebody's mascot, you know. You are a whole entity, a whole universe all by yourself. And you can live perfectly well without this person. If they drop dead tomorrow, no matter who they are, I don't care who they are, you can live perfectly well without them. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you got 4 kids. I know women who've done it with 4. It's very difficult. But when I say that what I've been through has been hell, when I say that what I've been through in this loft and getting this whole thing together and the really going 3 and 4 days without food so that we could buy lumber, you know, when I say that was hell and that was painful, I don't mean I wasn't happy. See, I was happy. I'm happy. It doesn't matter about your mother and father. It's when you finally decide you don't need him, her, anybody. You know, he can drop dead. You know, he can go away forever. You don't need him.
Actually, I guess my life has been pretty simple. It's been pretty straightforward, you know. I married one man, and I've stayed married to him, and I have never thought of not being married to him, and I have never had any side affairs, or even been tempted to have any side affairs, and that maintains great simplicity in your life. You know, the first big love of my life was, I was 25, I guess, when I first met this boy. Well, he was 25, too. It was in 1941. And, of course, the war started at the end of that year. And he was, at the time, he became a welder so that he wouldn't have to go to war. Then, but in 1943, the welders began to get conscripted, too. So he joined the Merchant Marine, and he went to France. He spent most of his war years in France, Paris. And I felt very badly about that, but I was going to be faithful to him, and I was, and I waited for 3 years. And then the war was over, and it became quite evident that he wasn't coming back right then. And for various reasons, the excuses why he had other things to do. And but he was sending me boxes from time to time, crates, large wooden crates, and they were champagne and cognac, and this was great. But he had written a letter saying, please don't open the crates, keep them until I get back, and and I think about 1947, when I realized that he wasn't coming back, to me at any rate, I decided to open the crates and have a big party. We used all the champagne. We had about 3 parties, as a matter of fact, on what was in those cases. There were at least 10 or 12 cases of champagne and cognac. We had a great time. And then I destroyed the boxes and got rid of them. Well, shortly before I was to be married to my husband, your father, he showed up. He called one day at work, and there he was. He was in town, and he wanted to see me, so I went and had dinner with him. And he asked me about the boxes, and I said, we drank this stuff a long time ago. He said, yes, but what about the boxes, the crates, all those wooden crates? I said, we got rid of them. We threw them out. We couldn't stand them. Why do you care? Well, he finally told me why he cared. It seemed that he had carved holes into the sides of the wood and had planted diamonds into them. And I had thrown them all away. the idea of introverting and thinking about myself never even occurred to me. And I don't think I've ever been introspective. Once in a while, people sort of force me by asking me a question which requires introspection, and then I force that upon myself. Well, the relationship between my mother and father was, maybe it was routine for an Italian man and wife, but it was sort of, master and slave, as far as I can say. I never remembered him saying a pleasant thing to her. He was a very difficult man to live with, very moody, very, I guess, self-centered. He was the lord of the house. Women have to be the ones that take care of the children. And while this is going on, somebody's got to be feeding both of you. And therefore, he's got to go out and do something about that. Clerks in Macy's couldn't speak Italian, but in my father's store, Italian was spoken, and so all of the trade went there. And I guess he made a good bit of money there because at the age of, about 40-ish, he retired, more or less retired, and went into he was investing in real estate, manipulating apartment buildings and taking mortgages and second mortgages and getting high interest on these things. And he really accumulated a fair amount of money, this having come here with nothing at all, But we never lived any differently from the beginning, from the first really parsimonious way. We lived in the slums. There was one little girl who lived in the same tenement building, and she was mentally retarded, and she was sort of half the butt of a lot of joking, and she would blurt out more things than the rest of us. And the story got around that Mary had peed blood. You see, my father, I guess he was sort of disappointed that he didn't have a son. And in the Italian tradition at that time, and I don't know whether it's still true, but girls didn't go to college. This just wasn't done. If they had had a son, then sometimes all of the girls would work in factories to get enough money together to get a boy through college and through professional schools, become my son the lawyer, my son the doctor. But the girls were not expected to go to school. I actually begged my father to be allowed to go to college, and he had to sign a paper. I would bring up the subject every once in a while when I thought he was in good humor. Well, you wait until he's had dinner and he looks as though he's comfortable, and then you bring up the subject again, and then it would wind up in a hassle in which he put his foot down. He said, "You go to work and earn some money." After I grew up and I was more mature, I liked him. I appreciated him as a character, like you would a character, an interesting character. He was extremely intelligent, really brilliant man. He had no education to speak of. I doubt that he went beyond the 4th or 5th grade. Oh, they went weeks without speaking to each other. This household that I grew up in, there were many times when my parents didn't speak to each other. My sister didn't speak to my father. My father didn't speak to any of us. And it was really, actually, I would say that if I had my life to live over, I'd like to skip the whole first 21 years and start, sometime later. My original career was in chemistry. And I came from a job where I had pretty decent responsibility, and I had 4 or 5 people working for me, and I was in charge of this micro lab, and I was making as much money as my husband was at the time. Well, there were things that I can remember that were pleasant, but there were more things. I think the important things, a feeling of having a family around you and having any kind of exchange, companionship. We didn't have that in my family. My sister and I developed somewhat that. And my mother hovered over us, and we did have her, and I think that she made it for us a little more what a child should have. With all the money he accumulated, we were never allowed to have a Christmas present. And so the only Christmas present we ever got were those that my mother could get with soap coupons. And the baby was certainly not an accident. I decided to stop working and stay home and, do what you're supposed to do at this stage. Take care of the baby, take care of the home, and do all these things. And she spent her hours and days waiting for him to come for meals, and she cooked a meal and he didn't show up. Well, that was all right. She would somehow have to keep it warm for him, and he might show up at 6 o'clock and expect dinner to be ready, or if he didn't show up until 9, he expected dinner to be ready. So she was on duty pretty much all the time. This is the way she spent her life. Her life was really devoted to my sister and me, and doing the dutiful things as a wife for him, which was more like maid duty in this case. I have a feeling that there wasn't a good sexual relationship there. I have a feeling that maybe there never was. I guess what I'm saying is that the man can achieve a climax without having an emotional involvement with the woman. It's like going to the bathroom. She may very well have been one of the frigid women that her culture must have developed. I think they must have developed a good many of them. The idea that you submit to sex to your husband in exchange for a meal, for your meals, your room and board. And I think she felt that, this was something that you put up with. My husband reminded me rather gently that in 17 years a great deal happens in the world of chemistry, and I hadn't kept up. And so, as a chemist, I would either have to start at the bottom again, or go back to school and take a great deal more training. He said that I might even be unemployable at this point. Oh, my father was a real original, a real character. He was one of the originals. He came to this country in 1905, and he was 19 years old. And he went to work as a waiter at the Waldorf. All Italians, and I guess most French immigrants, went to work as waiters. And he saved every penny and, lived in a really parsimonious manner. And in 5 years, he got enough money together to go back to Europe and get a wife. He wasn't going to marry one of these American girls. He went back to Italy to get himself a good Italian woman. She had grown up, of course, as a Catholic and had gone to Catholic school, a Catholic, convent. The young lady, middle-class Italian young lady, and she had been taught embroidery by the nuns. In my memory, he was a well-educated man. He knew a great deal, but absolutely unreasonable, very opinionated. His opinions were this, and he would only accept the facts that supported his opinion, and no other facts would he recognize. He was an atheist, a very active atheist, and he was very much against the church, any organized religion. So that when my mother died, we didn't have a religious ceremony in the church. The Episcopal minister came to the funeral home. And I know that for true Catholics, this is probably worse than having had no religious service at all. But we felt that she felt closer to this man than to any Catholic priest around, because she hadn't been in the Catholic Church for many years, and I don't think she thought of herself as a Catholic anymore. She didn't insist on it because she knew for sure that the tension that would grow up in the family would be absolutely unbearable. So she gave up going to church herself. We had decided to have a baby, but I was always learning from him. You know, I never taught him anything. He was teaching me. He would come home and discuss with me the general principles of these new concepts. But these were like a popularized version, you know? The Reader's Digest version of a new development. What he was doing, I think, more than anything, was crystallizing in his own mind the broad outline of the thing. Today's my 23rd anniversary, our 23rd anniversary. It's been a very happy 23 years all told, I think, in most cases. There have been sometimes that weren't so happy. The worst part of it was a time when he became ill. He had, he had what is a nervous breakdown. And he had to go into a mental hospital for about 6 weeks. And it was a very bad time actually it went on for, on his way down to this level, it took about 2 years and another 2 years to get out of that level. What caused it?
This is a rap about me, right? Okay. I'm 21. I'm a Leo. I have Scorpio rising. My moon is in Pisces. I have all kinds of theories about things. I don't know. I was brought up in Far Rockaway, New York, by the beach. And I swam a lot. When I left home, I was 17, and I didn't go. Well, I guess I was into the revolution. I felt that everyone should love everyone else. And I felt the system stunk. I still do. As soon as you start becoming objective and seeing what you're doing, which is what happened. All of a sudden we were on television and we were being told what we are, and I felt like we were corrupted because things really were beautiful. We never considered ourselves hippies until we read it in the newspaper. As far as I was concerned, I moved out of the house. I'm not sure why. It was a strange thing. My mother tells me now she plays mahjong with all her friends, and they sit around and say, yeah, my daughter left too at 17. And it was like a lot of people did that. But no one of us was really aware of the fact that everyone else was doing it. I know that I left for my own reasons. I had very personal reasons for leaving the house. This is my junk, right? This is just about all the things that I have. We were going to film me in my house, but I didn't have one. So we're filming me in not my house with all my junk around. This is it. This is about it. I left a couple of books home because books are pretty trivial. It's all nothing, I mean, yeah, it is. Yeah, it really is. I mean, these things in here mean everything to me. But you have to be able to throw it away. If you don't, you have to be able to throw things away. You just have to be able to throw things away. I'm in some kind of cage with food and plumbing so that I can shit and brush my teeth for my life, I don't always feel like that, but sometimes I feel like, sometimes I really feel crummy. I'm not sure what it is, but I think it has a lot to do with the social structure that made me feel like that. I don't know. That's a big cop-out, too. everybody's always saying, oh, it's the social structure that makes you feel crummy. You know, they're imprisoning me. You know, I must be free. I think that's bullshit to a certain degree. I think everyone wants a prison because they're scared of one thing or another, you know. And I think you can get out of it easily if you want to get out of it. Like, you know, you have all these hang-ups that as soon as you want to know what it is, all of a sudden you know what it is and you're free of it. But you don't want to know what it is. So you stay in it. There's something very interesting. You know, magic exists. And everything I own is magic. Everything you own is magic, too, you know. Like, that suitcase and this one here, they were all given to me by lovers, you know. They're my only 3 suitcases, right? I didn't have it. You know, like, my things change constantly. I have no possessions, really, because when I moved out of the house when I was 17, and when I moved out of the house, I moved to, you know, this place and that, you know, and finally I lived in the Lower East Side on 12th Street and Avenue C, and one day, this girl that I was living with and we came home. She went to visit her mother, I went to visit mine, you know. We came back to 12th Street at night, and everything was completely destroyed. Completely. Just totally demolished. There wasn't a thing left, you know. And it freaked me out. We walked in, and we looked around, and there was nothing there. They pissed on things. They wanted to see if we had any drugs in the house, you know. They figured, you know, that we'd have drugs, you know. And we didn't. So they figured, well, they don't have any drugs, you know, we'll just, you know, get drunk and destroy the place. So that's what they did. You see, that's where the bullshit lies, right? You see, like I say, that nothing is important to me because I came home one day and everything was destroyed. But still, I think that everything that I own is magical. You know, like my 3 suitcases that were given to me by 3 lovers, you know. Like, that's magic. And then when I moved out of the house, I moved out. It was a whole traumatic thing, you know. My father was going to strangle me, and I'm a cancerous growth, and get out of my house, and I hate you, and you hate me, and you're killing your mother, you know. And so I left the house, and I moved, you know, and it was a very funny scene. 12 o'clock at night, I came home too late, and my father said, you know, get out. And so I took my stuffed animal, and it was I have flair for histrionics, you know. I had to do it very dramatically. I took my stuffed animal and my little tote bag filled with a couple of things, and I walked out into the night with no money, not a penny. And a man walked by on the street, and I said, can I have money to get on the subway, sir? And he said, sure, little girl. And he gave me a quarter, and with my quarter, it was very funny. I went, and I went into Brooklyn, and it was snowing, and I was cold, and I sat on my friend's doorstep, because it was a boarding house, and you couldn't get in, and I was screaming for her to come down, and she was asleep. I feel what I need, you know. I feel when I'm hungry, and I feel when I need a specific possession. And I have only what I feel I need. If it's raining, I go inside, you know. And so maybe it's a cop-out. Maybe it's not wanting to be responsible for things, you know. Maybe it's just because I don't want to have an apartment, $120 a month apartment, and have to pay for it, you know. Then I'd have to hassle and get a job, and you know, maybe I just don't want to get a job, you know. But it's all right because I'm very happy. I mean, I'm doing what I want to do. Jeez. I was just thinking about destroying everything. You know, because all of a sudden I have all this freedom, you know, and now all of a sudden I can do everything. And I was wondering why I wanted to destroy everything. I'm still alive. Yeah, I've managed to keep myself alive. I've done, you know, So that means that I know how to do that, or that means I'm lucky. But it's all bullshit. So, whatever it is, it is. And, I don't know why I'm still alive, you know. Yeah, my life isn't that incredible that I shouldn't be still alive. Actually, I've tried to kill myself a couple of times, but bullshit kind of killing myself. I don't think I ever really tried to kill myself. I used to be very depressed and say, I really want to die, I can't stand this. But I never really had the nerve to do a violent act. Like I'd put myself in a trance. I'd create a situation where I could sleep all day, or where I could be stoned. Like I spent one summer stoned out of my mind all summer on speed and grass and all kinds of junk, And it was a summer that, after I left high school, because I had moved out of the house in the middle of my senior year. We're stoned constantly. And when I did work, I was bombed out of my mind when I worked. And actually, I spent like maybe 2 years really stoned out of my mind. I mean, just totally wrecked. I couldn't cope with the world at all. All kinds of games you can play in here, for God's sakes. Like, you set it up right. I mean, you can set up the cage any way you want to set it up, right? Like here, I have more room. The only hassle with this particular cage is that when I give myself more room, I have to hold it up. Like the other way, I don't like to do that. And then you can, you can do anything you want in the cage. And each cage, of course, is different. Like this particular one, this one moves around. Some cages are very portable. I'm a very portable cage. I only have 3 suitcases, and I run around the country, and I do all kinds of very hip things. And I've taken all kinds of drugs, and I've lived just such an exciting life. And so I'm a very portable cage. I started a theater troupe with this guy. We lived in a commune-type atmosphere, with a whole mess of people, and we had all different kinds of morals, and everything was beautiful. And I felt that everyone loved everyone else, And all of a sudden it started getting very corrupt. We got this money from doing the Woodstock Festival, traveled cross country in a bus. It was really at a sight bus. I mean, and we spent $1,000 going cross country in 2 weeks like that. We had a playpen on top of the bus with a big gold mattress, and we'd lay up there stoned out of our minds, watching the Rockies go by, and then we'd stop at night, and we'd have, and we constantly had millions of cigarettes and candy and soda, and we just laid there watching the world go by, and the bus was one big bed, and everyone just laid around drinking and watching, and it was beautiful, and reading, and just, it was ridiculous. And we found this one place in Kansas called Hell's Canyon. We picked up this hitchhiker who gave us some acid, and so we were all tripping. We all dropped the acid, and there wasn't anything for miles, like I said, like 50 miles, something like that. And there was this huge reservoir over there, and one picnic table. It was like a Fellini movie. One picnic table. It was like a smaller than an ant in the middle of my hand was the picnic table. It was a pinch in the middle of my hand, and there we were, this big blue bus and a picnic table and 12 freaks, a Great Dane, a Poolie, and a Siamese cat tripping. We piled out of the bus, and we proceeded to cook our steaks, and we put the candles on the one picnic table. The sun was going down. It was beautiful, and we just started eating, and we started smoking some grass, and eating our steak, and the sun, and the moon, and the stars, and the reservoir, and the champagne, and the candles. And one of the guys decided to go to steal the bus. And we turned around, and the bus was gone. Now, the bus had all of our possessions in it. We were in the middle of Kansas, 50 miles from the nearest road, barefoot, tripping. And someone stole our bus. Needless to say, everyone went insane. their reality had just been pulled out from under them to the point where no reality could ever exist again. Everyone got into themselves. What is the meaning of life? Why am I here? I mean, look at me with steak and champagne on a table in the middle of nowhere. No way of getting home. Nothing. Everything was perfect. Everything was, wouldn't you like to be out in the country with steak and champagne by candlelight? But it was so ludicrous and so horrible and so upsetting. And so the world just fell apart because everything was so perfect. And yet at the same time, we were captured. We were imprisoned in nothing. Pull it in, pull, and relax. I'm not going back to the theater troupe. Okay, now I want you to concentrate on your shoulders because you started out on a very spiritual trip. Concentrate on how they feel. Concentrate on the energy being directed into your shoulders. Feel energy being directed into your shoulders. Feel them. I want you to make your shoulders touch in front of your neck. Push them together. All the energy in your body is pushing. They're going to touch, push them, and relax them. All of a sudden, I felt like I was choking. Okay, now all the energy is going into your face. I couldn't move anymore. Squinch your face up. Squinch it up like a prune. Squinch. And now stretch it out. Open your mouth. Open your eyes. And relax. All of a sudden, we were just doing things for money, which is supreme bullshit. See, like I'm in here, and you're out there, right? And like I'm safe in here, because not only can I not get at you, but you can't get at me. Supposedly. Actually, there are all kinds of ways to get at me. And there are all kinds of ways that I can get at you. Do you want me to look at the camera, or do you want me to do it over there? All right, now everybody stand in a circle. All right, stand in a circle. All right, now just very gently push her and make sure you catch her. The game is called trust. The person in the middle has to trust that the other people are going to catch her. And the only way she can trust you is if you catch her. And she knows and she has the confidence in you that she's going to be caught. And you're not going to let her fall to the ground. Make sure she doesn't fall. All right, now, just let her drop. Someone catch her, that's right. Let her drop. And pick her up. Just start picking her up. That's it. Pick her up. And move her around the room. Everyone hold her. Make sure she doesn't fall to the floor. That's it. Move her around. Maybe turn her around. Be very gentle with her. Don't let her fall. You people were absolutely no help. You do it in everything. Like sexually, you do it. Sexually, you put up all kinds of barriers. You put up all kinds of things that you can't get through. All kinds of ways. Like I cupped out on myself when I was younger. I decided not to have anything to do with guys because that wasn't good, and I hated them. It was always an ego game. My ego was stronger than your ego. This is like such a dramatic figure in the society. This is like whatever it is. My life has been absolutely insane since I was 15. Absolutely insane. I was a nice Jewish girl from Queens. Then when I was 15, I went to summer stock. I told them I was 18 or something. And that was crazy, going to summer stock. And I learned all about sex in summer stock at 15. This one boy taught me what it was like. We used to, this one girl, it was really strange. I was reading this book called Well of Loneliness by Radcliffe Hall. And the girl that I was living with, my roommate at the stock company, she took the book one day And she just started laughing hysterically. She thought it was the funniest thing she ever saw in her life, you know. And I was taking the whole thing very seriously, you know. The book is about, you know, like this woman named Stephen, and she's a lesbian, and she has all these hassles, you know. And, you know, because her father really wanted to have a boy, and it turned out to be a girl, so he called her Stephen. And then this boy, at the same time, was teaching me about sex. It was very crazy. I mean, it was the first time I was ever out of the house, and I was with all these people that were much older than me. And we used to get drunk all the time and just go stumbling around Cape May, New Jersey, you know. And, you know, it was a big thing, you know. I went into bars, you know. I was hot shit, you know. And we used to go. I used to walk. Oh yeah, I used to walk on the boardwalk there. I used to walk out. I used to wake up like in the middle of the night and leave and start walking. I love the water. And I used to just start walking down the boardwalk, you know, and then I just walked for miles and miles and miles and miles, and it was pitch black, you know, and all you could see was the white of the ocean, you know, the foam, and then blackness, and you'd hear, and you'd see the white come up at you, and it just went on and on and on and on forever, you know, and I was walking down the boardwalk, and a rat came running up right in front of me, and it was just so scary. And then I must have been walking down the boardwalk for like an hour, and this man came up to me, out of nowhere. I swear to God, out of nowhere, you know. And he was like maybe 4 feet high, maybe 3.5 feet high, and he was dressed like a freak, like a gypsy freak. He had big long earrings on like that, and he was wearing this crazy hat, and he was much shorter than me. And I was walking, and I was like a million miles from nowhere. He really scared the shit out of me. And he was perfectly harmless. He was just a freak, you know, a freak that jumps around on the boardwalk late at night. And I just turned around and started walking back, and he asked me if he could walk me back. And he proceeded to jump around me, you know. And I just walked very calmly back. And it took me like an hour and a half to walk back. I mean, that's how far away I was, you know. And I was really scared that he was going to... I didn't know what he was going to do to me. I had no concept of what a freak like that was all about, you know. And I got back there. And this guy used to teach me how to make love, what it was like. He was very nice, actually. He was very blunt about it, you know. He used to get on top of me and get himself off, and then say, "Well, see, this is what I'm doing here, and don't worry about it." And you know, and he'd explain what he was doing, and I learned a lot. He taught me a lot. I intellectually understood a great deal of things after he did it to me. My emotions confuse me no end. You know, I just, you know, I don't know. You know, I can't see things that clearly sometimes, especially my emotions. I have to just work. I just have to just go, you know, and whatever happens, happens, you know. Well, what do you want? I mean, well, you're looking at me like, cut it. Listen, I do a lot of things that are not acceptable to a lot of people, right? I go to bed with women. I go to bed with men. I go to bed with women. My mother doesn't like that. Maybe you don't like that. I go to bed with men. My grandmother doesn't like that. Okay, so I relate to people. I see, you know, I meet you on the street, and I look at you. I have no idea where your head's at. If you're going to hassle me, you're going to hassle me. I don't know, you don't like dirty feet, too. Maybe you're going to get uptight at dirty feet, you know? So I have to sense what you will accept in me. A lot of people don't accept the fact that I like to go to bed with women. A lot of people don't accept a lot of things. That's their hang-up. I've had my fill of marching. I don't march anymore. It's fucked up. Women, men, nobody's liberated. I mean, liberation is like, it's a utopian concept. It's like any other utopian concept. It's never going to exist. This girl that I grew up with, well, we found ourselves very attracted to each other. And we started getting closer and closer until she realized that I was, you know, that I went to bed with women. And we both knew that we wanted to make love to each other. We loved each other. We had like a very close communication. And it was very beautiful. But she couldn't do it. I don't know. I don't know what that is. That's like walking. That to me is like having the nerve to walk out onto the boardwalk, and walk out for miles and then see the freak out there and realize that he's not a freak, that he's just a funny man, or that maybe he's very nice, but most people don't have the nerve to go walking out on the boardwalk in the middle of the night. The thing that really scares me about words is that there it is, there's the word, there, it's right there, and there's nothing you can do about it. Lesbian. Who are you to know that much about a person that you can box them into a box neatly like that and say, this is what they are? They're everything. You're everything. The only thing that fucks you up, or fucks, if you're not one of those people, fucks somebody else up, is the fact that they have to box everything into a neat thing because they're scared shitless. To box me in, I'll kill you. To box yourself in, you're stupid. Stop it. I think everything. I think everything is very fucked up. I think everyone is fucked up. And some people show it, some people don't show it. I don't know why gay people get fucked up. They get fucked up for the same social reason that everyone else. This society is fucked up. Everyone is afraid of everyone else's thing. That's why people suppress their insanities. And as soon as you show your insanity, for 1 second, everyone goes, you're insane, you're insane, you're insane. And you become insane because you're not insane. No one's insane. You are what you are. And as soon as you say, well, I'm a bit different, because you must be, because this is like a heavy thing in your life. Everyone starts going, at you, and you become insane. And it's true, you make yourself grotesque. I was into not fooling guys, and I wouldn't fool them, so they made me weird, They said, gee. They didn't say anything. They just figured I was weird, and I figured, well, I guess they're right, I'm weird, And so I was weird. I was an asexual freak. I was in a repertory company, so it was either ball them or ball no one. I don't know. I don't know why people do. They're scared. You're scared. They're scared. You're not scared, baby. They're scared. I'm scared. Everybody's scared. Everybody's afraid of something, and whatever you're afraid of. Shot this film in 2 days. That's where I am for these 2 days, Tomorrow I may be something else, So you don't really know me. You know me for these 2 days, You know a couple of things about me, and the things that you know about me are valid. And the things you know about the other people are valid. But you have to remember that nothing stops. A point doesn't exist. You make it for yourself. Everything goes on forever and ever. It just goes off into nowhere.